Once again, if you guys are just joining, I'm your host, Ponyboy Paul, and this is episode 4 of the Paul and Pals IG Live show, where I like to interview my pals, friends, acquaintances, just to see what kind of cool things they're doing in their life and really highlight, their life period. So, for this episode, we got my boy Cortney Robinson, and I'm gonna let him tell his story. But I'm really excited. I've always been a big fan of him. But without any further ado, let me get some applause, drum roll emojis, and I'm going to add Cortney to the chat.
Drum roll emojis, man.
Hey, what up, Cortney?
What's up, bro?
How you living, bro? How you living?
I'm good, bro. I'm here,
Good,
man.
man.
I'm alive.
You living good, bro.
Man.
I'm liking the hair, bro.
Yeah, I don't have no choice, man. I'm out here looking like a caveman, bro.
Are you living, bro? Live your
all this. It's all good.
Your true self, bro.
Man.
But to get it started, let's how you doing right now? How you doing, bro?
I'm good. I think like a lot of people, we're figuring it out day by day, and I think it's important to listen to yourself. You're gonna have good days, probably you're gonna have bad days. 99% of the time I'm okay. Some days, like the other day, I was kind of pissed off, but I think that's normal and understandable considering the conditions.
Exactly. We can get into that a little bit more too, but
Yeah.
Obviously, the episode is really about you. I'm very interested in getting to know you. So, first, let's start with how we met. And I think very interesting thing that we talked about when we were getting ready. I actually have only met you, I think, once or twice in person, which is crazy to think about because I feel like I really know you. But I actually met you through the Odom family. Shout out your wife Nneka.
Yeah.
I think she's in the chat. Tell her I said hi. She's over there. But it's been great knowing you since then.
Thank you.
But yeah, let me start with you. How like just tell us about yourself.
I mean, really, the long and short of it, man, is I by trade I make my living as a technical consultant, which is just a fancy way of saying that I build digital applications and products. I develop them. Most recently, I've been working as a digital experience consultant. So basically, my skill set is at the crossroads of marketing and development, design and product design, and just figuring out how to build things that people like doing. That's what I do as a day job. That's what I do for my career. That's what I enjoy doing. Outside of that, though, man, I'm making a lot of stuff. I'm making stuff for myself. I'm making stuff for my wife. I'm making stuff in partnership with our projects, and also trying to help people and teach people along the way, man. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of especially in this day and age, digital skill sets that people want to improve at and kind of dive into. And I think more often than not, they think it's harder than what it actually is. And it's really just about getting started.
Got you. And that's a good point because I've been sharing it a lot on my story. I know you've been doing the 30 Days of Value challenge, which I think you created yourself.
Yeah.
You kind of just been posting everything, something of value, something to teach people. And what was what was the motivation behind that? Why'd you just make that randomly?
We consume too much, man. In a 24-hour period, there's more content created hours than from the beginning of history till 2003, I believe, right? That's how much content on a daily basis is being made. And we're so used to being on our phones and doing this every second of the day. And there's tons of good content. There's tons of good information being put out. But the challenge for me was I know I have a ton of knowledge just around digital skill sets specifically. And my thing is I don't want to be egotistical. I don't want to be possessive of that, right? Meaning that if I know it doesn't, I don't lose anything by giving it away. So 30 Days of Value is just my way of saying, every day I want to make sure that I'm giving anyone that follows me, anyone that I know, whether we're friends, whether we're internet friends, whether we're strangers, I just want to give them at least one, piece of information that I think might be helpful to them or at least someone they know. And just do that every single day and just be consistent about it.
That's a good point. I think it's kind of easy to get into that point where you're good at something and you learn it and you want to be the only person, right? The best person to do it. So, I'm obviously a big fan. I'm biased, right? So I really love what you're doing. And I'm excited to see how you're going to finish the rest of the days off.
I got to figure that out too, man. I don't know.
You're just making it as you go?
Yeah, man. That was part of it too, of not being too strict about it. I'm not trying to plan it out. Whatever hits me that day is what I've been putting out.
Got you. And to kind of take a step back, because you kind of just jumped into you are a digital experience consultant. What's your history? Were you going to school for that? Have you always wanted to be what you're doing right now, or what's your story on that?
Absolutely not. I started school with the intent to go to law school. I started as a political science major, actually as a political science Africana studies double major. Switched to business, switched back to political science, ended up teaching myself how to code, ended up getting a job, and ended up leaving school and just going full time into tech. And that was over 15 years ago.
Okay, all right, we gotta digest that. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
so law school. So tell me what was the? I'm gonna just forget that and switch it up.
I realized I don't have the. So ideally at the time I thought that I was going to go into civil rights law, and then I realized that I don't have the patience for politics. I don't have the patience for navigating certain things because I think that there's a lot of pleasantry, pageantry, and flowery language that kind of blocks just the truth of what we're all dealing with, right, and what we're all navigating. So for me, when I got deeper into that major and was navigating spaces where, okay, I'm around lawyers, I'm around people, getting into law and politics, I realized more and more I didn't like it. And the thing at that time that was bringing me joy was learning how to code and then building websites and designing flyers and designing websites for people. And I just started really just going full force at that.
Got you. So then, was all of that just kind of self-taught? It wasn't like I'm gonna switch majors, I'm gonna do this. You kind of just said I'm gonna make this decision and just go learn it.
It was self-taught. I bought a bunch of books. I bought a Sam's Teach Yourself PHP, HTML, and CSS in 24 hours. If anyone has ever tried coding, you probably are familiar with those books. I bought one of those books. I spent the summer of after my sophomore year. I played basketball in college my first year. After that first year, I totally stopped playing basketball. I totally went into code. I spent an entire summer just in my room every day, just learning how to code. I'd go out, I'd play like a summer league basketball game. I'd come back to my house and I would just learn how to code, bro.
That's crazy, man. I mean, yeah, I think coding is one of those things I feel like when I think back on it, I always wish that, I should have like done this, minor in computer science or something. When really it's one of those skills that if you don't know how to code, you can easily learn it. So It's never an excuse to like not say you can't do it. So that's inspirational, bro.
The hardest part about coding, bro, and I say this to everyone. I have a brother of mine who recently, in the last year and a half, got a job as an iOS developer and recently had a promotion. And the thing I used to tell him, the thing I'll tell anybody, the hardest thing about coding is just being consistent, man. It's not about math. It's not even about whether or not you perceive yourself to be a smart person. Can you be disciplined enough to stick to it every day or every other day, and just over a reasonable period of time, you'll see yourself get better.
That's a good point. And then like kind of going back more into your story. So you learned how to code, right?
Yeah.
But how did you figure out how to make that a profitable daily thing? Like what was your thinking behind learning how to code?
That's the thing. I didn't for years. I didn't for a while. I was still going to school, and more and more I was hating school and hating what I was majoring in. And I was broke as fuck, man. I was broke as fuck for a while. So it wasn't one of those things like, yo, I'm gonna do this and start making money. I was making flyers for people for cheap. I was making websites for people for cheap. That's really where I started to learn about business and contracts and workflow and organization. And I incorporated my first company. And it wasn't probably until 4 years into coding that I started to hit real money. So the first 4.5, 5 years, I was broke as shit, man. And that's part of the journey, bro.
Yeah. It's a long journey. What was that? Go into more detail about that first company that you incorporated.
It was called GVE Media, and it was the GVE stood for, this is trash. It was giving vision to everything, right? The whole intent was to help at that time small businesses get online, learn how to market themselves and position themselves in search engine ranking, and then be able to just offer them, reasonable digital services, design, web development, stuff like that. And so I incorporated that. That was probably 2009-ish, 10-ish. I started coding around 2005, 2006, end of 2005. So like I said, about 5 years. And, I was getting clients here and there, word of mouth. But another thing, I was building the technical skill set, but I didn't have the client services skill set. I didn't know how to onboard clients. I didn't know how to properly sell them. I didn't know how to maintain those relationships and you know, keep a client on a roster over a period of months. So there's all these different learning curves that I always tell people about, that it's if you're going to really be an entrepreneur, not a hustler, you have to build up your skill set in a couple different areas, and more importantly, you have to realize the stuff that you suck at.
Yeah.
And you have to be willing to partner and work with people and bring people on board that can help you with the areas that you suck at.
Got you. And then, so I'm starting to understand more and more. Obviously, I feel like from what you're starting to describe, you kind of got to a point where you were just like, I'm going to just go out and get it.
Yeah.
Right? So from that, how did this coding knowledge and this ability to, you know, you wanted to be an entrepreneur, how did that start to get more into the podcasting space? Like, can you kind of paint that picture?
Yeah, that's a jump. So the podcasting space is really something that I only got into 2 years ago. But just to be clear, so I've worked for a ton of companies, both full time and just on some like consultant and contract based work. So over really, I started doing this in 2005, right? It's now 2020, so it's been 15 years. Over that 15 years, I've gotten to work with agencies and consultancies and some of the biggest tech companies in the world and startups, and have had to like kind of learn a broad array of skills. So I've learned video, I've learned audio, I've learned development, I've learned design, all these different things, learned by taking workshops, classes, and learned by doing. And so 2 years ago, when I was talking to my wife and I was figuring out, hey, I want to do a podcast, and she wanted to do a podcast, it was really just going through the same process, man. It's all the same thing. If all the information is available online, especially, you know, in terms of like, if you look at something like Adobe Suite, right? Adobe, all of its products are essentially the same shortcuts, same ways of doing things. So once you know one, you kind of know all of them. And so I just kind of looked into some general podcasting stuff. I bought some mics. I did some research around like what mics were the best. Now over the course of 2 years, I can tell you, you know, different frequencies that different mics operate in, right? You become a master at your craft or a master at whatever the things you're interested in, and you just do the work, man. That's all it comes down to. So that was 2 years ago. I had been kind of ruminating on some stuff that I just wanted to put out in terms of just kind of documenting my wife, Nneka. She had made a great point to me about, you know, she does an amazing job and a wonderful job of documenting, you know, her family and our life, and not for like likes and glory, but genuinely just to kind of like archive it so that when we look back 10 and 20 and 30 years from now, we can kind of reflect on what our journey has been. And so that kind of just started sitting with me more. And I decided I was going to start, you know, recording my thoughts. And that's how, unfortunately, Honest came about, where I'm just kind of, you know, in under 5 minutes, I'm just trying to get some of my thoughts out. It's a very cathartic and selfish thing for me. Like, I'm not doing it for an audience. I'm not doing it for likes. I'm just doing it to get it out. And then from that, she had applied to a program. She got denied. She's talked about this before. She got denied. And we were like, yo, fuck it. We're going to do it. We don't need, if you have the skill set, and between the two of us, we literally have a skill set for a full spectrum agency. We just put it out. We did it ourselves. We put it out, and people really responded well to it. And it's been, that's over the last 2 years, that's been amazing. That was released in, I think, August of 2018. We did a live show in New York. We sold it out. It's been listened to in over 100 countries. I think it's passed over 350,000 listens. So it's been amazing just to see how that's come about.
Hey, keep flexing on them, bro. Keep flexing.
I mean, yeah, man. You do the work. You do the work, bro. You
gotta let them know. That's why I bring you on here, bro. I think you know, what you do is very inspirational. We're gonna obviously get into more, but I think it's good that you have a clear reason why you're doing it. You're not just doing it to do it for the likes or whatever. You're doing it genuinely. So I think that's what is a good motivation as well. And you know, I really wish I could have made y'all wedding. Unfortunately, I was working.
Hey, man, you missed a good time, bro.
Hey, I know, bro.
You had a good time. There's stories from that weekend.
I know.
I was upset that you couldn't come, man. You would have had a great time.
It's all good. And but yeah, so I think for the people that aren't familiar, you know, can you give a kind of breakdown about the project that you guys are working on, the 2 podcasts, I would say. Start with Passing Through.
Yeah, Passing Through is, for anyone that hasn't listened to, it's intended to be an audio experience, right? It's intended to so being in technology, looking at like voice applications, right? Like, it's super nerdy, and like learning how to build and develop apps for like Alexa, things like that. Where we're going to be in the next 5 to 10 years is I think out of the range of understanding of a lot of people, right? We're going to be able to interact with our devices, with our refrigerator, with our stove, with an earpiece in our ear in a way that we just don't right now. And so passing through is really an attempt to be early in that in terms of providing audio experiences. It's not just a podcast where it's a bunch of talking heads just talking about pop culture. It's not a podcast where it's just someone ranting. It's an attempt to be immersive in Nneka's storytelling. And she's one of the best storytellers I know. I know anyone listening, you're gonna think that I'm biased. I don't give a fuck. Like she genuinely is one of the illest writers, illest storytellers I know, aside from the fact that she's my wife. And passing through is just an extension of her writing and her storytelling, and then some of my technical ability in adding sound effects, and then us coming together and figuring out, this world is being created. How do we, help people be immersed in this experience? I think one of the best examples of that is the episode about her mom, where she's kind of giving a story from her mom's perspective, navigating the genocide that happened in Cambodia. I think that episode is kind of like the top tier of what we're kind of capable of as a team in terms of podcast.
No, that was a favorite episode. Shout out Auntie. And I think I don't know the whole full dates, but can you kind of break down how you guys were kind of able to, kind of build that team, that following, and then have that translate into a live show? I think sold out seats in New York.
I think it comes down to two things. One, she had a following already. I think that's a good thing to talk about too. I think people look at her and the following she has, and they make a lot of wrong and inaccurate assumptions. Like a lot of her following came from her just starting at a very pure place of she enjoyed photography and she wanted to get better. And I think that's something that is often lost, where it's like she just was practicing her craft, and over time getting better and increasing and realizing and figuring out how to tell stories, she grew a following. So when we launched the podcast, I think it's a combination of years of work on her part, when she just was doing visual storytelling and photography and starting to work with brands. And then honestly, just real shit, the podcast is good, man. Like it's high level. If it was not good, I don't think it would have gotten the response that it got. And so we try to be consistent about it. We try to be thoughtful about the stories and how we kind of blended our skill set together. And then we got an opportunity. We were doing some work with the brand. They were throwing some stuff out there, and we said, screw it, let's do it. Let's do a live show. We ended up doing a live show for about 200 people at this place called Subculture in New York, and it sold out within like 2 weeks. So it was amazing. It was an amazing experience.
Making money move, bro. And so that's dope. I feel like that's not that you guys needed it, but that kind of validated you guys in that you could make it something more than a podcast, right? So was that kind of the inspiration or motivation behind going towards the Layover, or how did that come to be about?
I think that I'm gonna give you a long answer, but you're used to it. So I think that more than ever, right? People want to make things, right? But there's still this weird thing of, I have a day job, or I went to school and I have this degree and this is what I'm supposed to do, but I still kind of want to make things, right? So it's easy to be dismissive about people that are making things, right? Especially someone with my background in terms of experience and career and technical skill set, especially someone with Nneka's background. The Layover is two things. One, it's a continuation of our mutual desire to help people tell stories and help Black people tell stories and help Black women tell stories. That's at the forefront of, like, have you ever been to a Moth event? Moth is a live storytelling. It's cool, and there's nothing wrong with it, but just the real talk of it, it's very white, right? It's telling stories to a community that doesn't relate culturally to the things that we might as Black Americans. It doesn't relate culturally to the things that you might as a first generation Nigerian, right? It doesn't relate to those things. Can the Layover be that? And that's the attempt at that. The Layover is not just some cute, fanciful effort at launching a podcast. The Layover is an attempt at launching a media platform that's going to tell the stories of Black and brown people, men, women, that we're going to care about and be able to relate to. And if we put all of our effort and all of our skill set to that, can it be that? And I think that it can.
Got you. And we were kind of talking in our own conversations about this, is that you also, even though you guys did it and it's very helpful, you guys also approached it with kind of a business mindset. And can you kind of explain what your thinking was behind that and how you guys are thinking of making actually, profitable per se?
Yeah, stop thinking about putting things online as content. I get contacted quite a bit, and it's not a bad thing per se, but people will hit me up and say, "Yo, I love your content," or "Yo, I hope you grow your audience." We don't own these platforms. I respectfully, I don't care about my Instagram followers. Nneka doesn't care about her Instagram followers in the sense of like stressing over numbers, right? We care about human connections. We care about being able to have real conversations. We care about being able to connect to people, right? And we care about building a product. And so if I'm putting on my consultant hat, when you're building a product, you want to collect data. You want to figure out how you're going to do a smart iteration through that product, right? The first version of that product is not going to be the 10th version. So in terms of addressing layover, we know there's a key demographic that's not having its stories told, that's not engaging with certain platforms and not being put at the forefront, right? So if we're looking at the layover as a product in the sense of how do we provide the best experience possible to, one, give people information, two, allow people to tell their stories, three, allow people to have genuine connection, and hopefully expand where it's not just us controlling that, right? It's people in cities all over the world that are able to say, hey, similar to a moth, we're having a meetup and we're allowing people to do X, Y, and Z under the umbrella brand of the layover, right? It's a product. It's not just a podcast. And even if it was just a podcast, there's nothing wrong with that. But it's about really going through the iterations of building a business and building a product. And that takes a lot of thoughtful consideration and a high level of execution and a lot of fuck ups. Like, you're going to mess up, man. That's part of it. Can you take the data from that fuck up and apply it and do better?
Got you. That's a good long answer. And just kind of going off your last statement, what's been a problem you guys have ran into, or what's been some hindrance that you guys have had to overcome in making that?
The hardest thing with working for yourself, and to step back from that for a second. So I've been fully remote for almost the last 7 years, right? So the pandemic and all that stuff hasn't really changed my schedule, right? I had to learn how to be very disciplined in getting work done. So being remote, working from my home office, traveling to different client sites or different internal meetups and stuff like that, that's just been my normal life for now the last 7 years pretty much, right? The hardest thing about working for yourself, I think, especially for first timers, is you got to learn what your schedule is. You got to learn what your workflow is, and you got to be fucking disciplined.
Yeah.
If you think I see that you have your boy from Morning Brew. I respect the fuck out of Morning Brew. The founder did a interview with Noah Kagan a while ago, and people will look at something like an email list, like building a 2 million person email list, as something that's easy. It's not. It takes discipline every single
shout out Josh.
day. Right. You know what I'm saying? It's like, it's that. Can you be disciplined day in, day out? I think that's the biggest hurdle and obstacle of holding yourself to a certain schedule, to a certain discipline, and to a certain consistency to execute. That's the getting of the creation of content, the putting together a technical workflow. That's what I've been doing for 15 years now. Yeah. It's managing all that other stuff, managing real life stuff, because we still have obligations. We have other businesses. We own other properties. We're trying to do other things. Can we be disciplined in how we execute on this?
Hey, flex on them real quick.
I mean, we're trying, man. We're trying to live. Yeah. That's it.
No, I feel you, bro. And, you kind of, your answer was you've been doing it for 7 years, so you're good at it, right? But let's go back to that first year. What was that? Like, what is some advice you can give for the people that are still adjusting to it, that are going to be working from home probably for the rest of the year?
Yeah.
Like, what was some hard parts, and what did you learn from that?
You have to learn how to over communicate. You got to treat working remotely and dealing with colleagues and it's hard right now, right? Because even I felt it. Like I said, I have a high level of, at this point in my life, I have a high level of emotional control, right? But so it's like, most things don't bother me. Most things I don't take personal. I can kind of self-regulate and check myself. But even the other day, I think it was Tuesday. I was not in a good mood Tuesday. Like the black square thing, that's a whole other thing, right? It's about, can you manage yourself? Can you over communicate even remotely and even when you don't feel like it? I think if you're transitioning to remote work right now, there is no cubicle conversation, right? There is no water cooler conversation. You're not able to have those. So you have to realize, touch base with a colleague, touch base with a supervisor, with the boss, touch base with a VP, touch base with whoever, just to have that moment of human interaction, and then go do what you got to do. That's the first thing, of like, find the points of human connection. The second thing is you gotta find your schedule, bro. Like me, I'm usually up anywhere between 4:30 to 6:30. That's the range in which I'm up and I'm starting my day and doing whatever, right? Some days later, but very rarely is it past 7 a.m. It's usually between 4:30 to 6:30. I'm up within that window.
You
right,
wild, bro.
I mean, but that's just naturally when I wake up now. So it's like, yo, maybe you work better in the afternoon. Maybe you work better in the evening. Maybe you work better in the morning. Whatever it is, you got to figure that out, communicate that, and then try and stick to that. It's all about setting a schedule. And the last thing I'll say is, at least for me, don't work in your bedroom. I can't. Like right now, I'm in my office. I don't work downstairs in my living room. I don't work at my dining room table. I don't work in my room. I come into my office and I do work. And separating the rest of my house from where I do work helps me, you know what I'm saying, like, stay focused.
That's true. Dang, bro, you got me thinking. My office is my bedroom because I got my desk set up to my bed. So I can't do it. I feel that. That's dope. And, we kind of talked about, the two main podcasts people may be familiar with you from. But you also have another one that I just kind of was checking out probably in the last month. I think it's called Incredibly Honest.
Unfortunately Honest.
Can you give us a little bit of detail on what that is?
Unfortunately Honest is my my self-therapy, right? Like, we all deal with shit. We all navigate the world. We all deal with friends and family and coworkers and life and social unrest and pandemics. And Unfortunately Honest started, like I said, about 2 years ago. I'm very inconsistent with it, and that's on purpose because I don't want to force it. I do it when I feel like doing it. Where I just write out my thoughts and I just put it out. Usually most of them are under 7 minutes. All of them are under 10 minutes. And it's just my way of getting out some of my thoughts. What's been cool about that, and that's why I tell people too, like, yo, it's a different day and age. We're not living in our parents' day and age. We're not living in our grandparents' day and age. Put shit out. If you really have a desire to do it, do it. I've had people from Australia, from Kenya, from Zimbabwe, from Nigeria, from London, from all over the world contact me and just tell me, like, hey man, something you said in this podcast, in your Unfortunately Honest podcast, resonated with me. And that is, it never boosts my ego, but it's still a cool moment to have with another person.
Yeah. Now, that's dope, man. I mean, I listened to it more specifically the last episode, and regarding Nipsey Hussle and his passing. I think what you said in those 7 moments or 7 minutes really just, it hit me, because I think it really said a lot of what hadn't been said publicly that maybe people might feel kind of uncomfortable if you were to say that in a conversation, but I think it's something that needed to be said. So if you guys, I'm gonna drop a link to or a picture of that so you guys can go check it out after this episode. But and one thing I forgot to mention, if you guys are familiar, I've seen some questions coming in. If you guys want to ask Cortney any questions,
man, ask me some questions.
Feel free to submit it right here. I think we got one right now. Hold up. First one. Is there?
I'm gonna try and be more consistent too about Unfortunately Honest. I've actually written like 7 episodes and I just haven't put them out.
Yeah, bring it back, bro. Bring it back. Is there something that you did to create your schedule or develop your ability to be disciplined?
I wanted to make money and eat food. No, but I think, you gotta figure out the systems that work for you. For me, I put a lot of stuff. I schedule everything in my calendar. I use Trello to map out tasks and goals and like kind of like mini development sprints. I go in and out of doing like to-do lists. You got to figure out the system that works for you. I'm like, for me, right, I work a lot with technology. So I'm not very dogmatic about one technology because I've had to use so many and I've had to learn how to use so many. It's that same idea. I can't tell you what will work for you. Maybe you're a person that needs to write everything in a to-do list, and if you do it, like, you'll stick to it. I'm not that person. I can put it in my phone, I can put it on my schedule, or I can just keep a mental note, and usually I'm pretty good about getting it done. What I will say is the thing that I've probably been most consistent about especially just because I use it a lot in work, is using software like Trello or Jira, because I work in agile development teams. So it's like those are softwares that help you manage tasks on a bi-weekly basis.
Got you. And for the followers, you were saying Trello, right? Trello.
Yeah, Trello, and you can get a free account. And if you want like more extensions and add-ons, then I think it's $20 or $25 a person or something like that.
Right. That's good, man.
Trello, Tre. Yep. Homeboy just wrote it.
Yep. Hey, you nice. And I forgot to. I was gonna think about it earlier, but you know, you have a lot going on, and you obviously have a ton of ideas. But like, if you had to summarize, I feel like what right now do you think is like a main aspiration / goal that you're really trying to get to, or do you not even have that?
I always have that. I have a vision for my life, man. It's a marathon, not a sprint. I'm more focused. I'm 35, just to be clear with everyone. I'm 35. I'm more focused and more driven and more ambitious right now at this point in my life than I've ever been. And a lot of that, I think, just comes from knowing what's important to you. For me, family is important. For me, getting to a place where I can provide resource and help to people in a way that is impactful and life-changing, that's the ultimate goal. I don't care about money for the sake of money. I don't care about attention for the sake of attention. A lot of it, even why the book that I want to, give away, a lot of it is about, removing the ego, removing the bullshit, removing the fluff from all the shit that society tells us to care about. And like, what are you about? If you ask me what I'm about, if you ask me what I cared about, what I want to live for, what I'm willing to die for, I can articulate that to you without hesitation. I'm serious. I love to have fun and do all that stuff. I just know what I stand for. So for me, the main goal, the main project that I'm working on, I'm not going to fully speak on because I'm still in the process of building it. But ultimately, it's providing access, education, and resource to people to do the things that they want to do. And the main thing that I'm personally working on in that space, I'm probably will be looking for funding for in the next year or so.
Hey, man. Yeah, if I can invest, bro, if I can get in on that, bro, hey, let me know.
I got you.
Okay, somebody was asking this. You mentioned it earlier. So, what is the name of that book that you used to learn the code?
Don't get that book. That book is super old. That book is from like 2006. Don't get that book.
Hey, he's 35, yo.
If you want, I'm 35. If you want, the person that asked me, whoever, just DM me at this account, my Cortney account, and I'll give you a list of online resources, and I'll give people free ebooks. I have a bunch of free ebooks, coding ebooks too. I'll give away. I'll make it all available. Just DM me your name, tell me you were in this chat, and I'll send it to you.
All right, yeah, I'm gonna make that. I might need that too, bro.
I got you.
We'll work on.
I have like 1,000 ebooks about coding. So if you're trying to get started, I'll just put them like in a Google Drive and I'll make them available.
All right, y'all chill in the comments, yo. He ain't that old.
Hey, I'm living though.
Hey, you living. And that's one thing. It's a good thing that you do mention your age. Obviously you're 35. And I would say majority of my audience is around my age. I'm 24. Do you feel like, did it take you a while to get to this level of confidence of, hey, I know what I'm about, I can articulate that? Or did you feel like you just recently got into that mode?
No. So a couple of things. I think because of who my mother is, and I'm Tanya's son, I can tell you stuff from when I was 10 years old. I've always had a very strong sense of self, right? I think what took me a long time, I think what takes a lot of people a long time, I think what takes a lot of men a long time is learning how to get the fuck out of your own ego. So I've always been confident, and not confident from an arrogant place, because I realized even when I was young, I was always willing to do the work and learn how to do things. But, I went to school, I joined a fraternity, I hit a stride where I was doing really well after I was doing really badly. It's easy to be egotistical about those things. At the end of the day, it's very easy to lose. You know what I'm saying? When you have gone through enough losses, when you've had enough life experience, and I think a lot of that does happen in your 20s, I hope that by the time you get to your 30s, you're able to be honest about yourself. Like, no one can tell me, and not from an arrogant place. I know how it sounds, right? It's easy to take what I'm about to say as a very arrogant and maybe pretentious thing. No one can tell me about me. I'm going to be more honest about me than anyone can ever be, even my wife. Like, I'm going to hold myself to that degree of standard. I always say this thing to a lot of my mentees. I want to be Eminem in 8 Mile, right? I want to step on the stage, if you've seen that movie, at the end,
Yeah.
and I want to put all my shit out there and know what all my shit is, so that if I have to face it, there's no one else that can be like, well, you're not looking at this. No, I am looking at this. And I think getting to that place, getting to that ability, which is very hard to do, and that's even why, again, going back to the book that I want to recommend, I think that's the most valuable skill set. If you can see yourself clearly, if you can really step outside yourself and say, yo, these are things I'm good at, these are things I'm bad at, these are things that make me a good person, these are maybe the things that make me not such a good person. Maybe I actually do some trash shit from time to time.
Yeah.
That is only going to hopefully overall make you a better person if you actually want to improve.
Yeah.
So for me, a lot of that was by the time I got to my late 20s, and I had some wins, I had some losses, and I was coming into a higher level of just lifestyle and capability and resource and maturity and development, and actually being a grown ass man and trying to be accountable and real to that. Mm-hmm. And then eventually recognizing, okay, look, yo, I've had this life, I've had these experiences, I've been able to live, I've lost, I've won, I've traveled, whatever. Okay, now I'm ready, because I realize that the only thing that will make me even stronger is a solid partner. Meeting Nneka at 31, it's like, those are things you need to go through those experiences to get to that place, but you need to be honest with yourself in order to get to that place.
Thanks, man. That's a lot, but no, I take that. I think even for me, I feel like even since, I feel like 2019 was the year where I really felt like I got to start doing all these things in my head, right? But even hearing that from you, it's dope, bro. It's inspirational.
Yeah. Yo, what I would say to you, what I would say to everyone on this, especially if you're under 30, but even if you're over 30, is you cannot be afraid to lose. Shoot the shot, miss the shot. I don't care if you airball. I don't care if you get ripped. If we're using basketball analogies, it doesn't matter. Shoot the fucking shot. The shot, you missing the shot, is never going to be as bad as you not taking it. Like, you can't dwell on that. Trust me. Like, it will work out. It'll come out okay. Like, the more you shoot and the more you miss, the more immune you become to even the effect of missing. I don't care at this point if I miss. Like, I know from now until I die, yeah, life is going to ebb and flow, but I've been through enough shit and I've learned how to maintain and quote unquote win. From now until I die, I'll be okay. I know I'll be able to figure it out, because I've shot enough shots and I've lost enough to realize, like, yo, losing is not the end.
Yeah.
Missing is not the end. Embarrassment is not the end. Failure is not the end. I'm breathing. I'm alive. If I'm healthy, man, I'm okay.
It's here, man. I feel it too, bro. I feel it.
Wow.
We got another question here real quick from the boy Josh. He says, which leaders are you inspired by right now?
Are we so this is easy. I'm not really inspired by any leaders right now. So I look at a lot of so I'm a big, again, when I started school, my major was political science. My double major was political science and African studies. I'm a huge history nerd. If I wasn't doing the stuff that I was doing, and if I didn't enjoy tech, people have asked me what I would do, I probably would be a history teacher. For me, a leader that inspires me is Paul Robeson. Paul Robeson is a 20th century figure. He was born in New Jersey. His father was born a slave. He's like the Renaissance man of Renaissance man. He was an activist. He was a singer. He was an orator. He was all these different things. He was accused of being a communist by the American government, and he stood up in, I believe, 1954, or it might have been 1958, and he was brought in front of the Housing Committee on American Affairs, right? And they were questioning him about his quote unquote un-American activities. He had been singing all around the world. He'd been talking all around the world. He'd been standing up for oppressed people all around the world, right? Tons of clips on him. Paul Robeson, if you look him up. And in front of this committee, this is a black man in the 1950s. They asked him if he was a communist, and he said, he basically said, I'm not going to answer your question, but if I were to be a communist, I have the right to be so by the rights granted to me by your United States Constitution and by living in this free country, right? Just having the audacity to speak truth to power, just having the ability to say, hey, this is where I stand. That when I first learned about him, and I learned about him in high school, that always stuck out to me of like, yo, we're going to live, we're going to be born, we're going to die. In between that, we're going to live, and we have a short time to figure out how we want to live. And I've always wanted to live in that way. I'm not going to live and be afraid. I'm not going to live and be unwilling to speak my truth. You know what I mean? That's why a lot of leaders and politicians right now, don't inspire me because they're playing the political game. They're afraid to speak a certain truth to power, and they don't realize that the political game has shifted, right? Yeah. Donald Trump shows that, and it doesn't matter what your political leanings are. Donald Trump shows you that you can speak a certain way and be abrasive and be direct and be real, and we're in a day and age where people will respond to that, and yet so many politicians still want to pander and still want to have niceties and pleasantries that don't serve them well. So for me, I look at people like Paul Robeson. I look at people like Malcolm X. I look at people like Maya Angelou. I look at people like, I don't know. I can give you a list, but people that are willing to just say what it is, man, because we don't have time to bullshit sometimes about what the truth of the matter is.
Yeah. Dope, man. It's a good answer. And I just want to give you a heads up. We're nearing about 5 minutes left before I got to let you go.
Yeah.
And normally towards the end, I mean, you kind of drop a lot of little cool tidbits. I like to have you, now that you have this platform, you have this audience, what are some thoughts you want to get off your head? What are some words of advice? Just like, what's on your mind right now that you think you would like to share with everybody?
You're laughing because you're just throwing the oop.
I know.
Shit, Paul.
Hey,
Two things, man. I think it's something that is so important to me. Of don't live a life afraid of living, right? Like there's just the people that know me. I have a really close friend that has been battling terminal cancer for a number of years now, and through him, I already thought a lot of these things, but through him and when I say close, like he's my brother. I've been with him through pretty much every step of the way. Through him, my perspective has become that much more, intense about, this regardless of what you believe, this is the time that we have now. And so many people will express to me, like especially again through the podcast, will express to me about their desires and wishes to do that, to do this, to do whatever. Do it. More often than not, you're not hurting anybody. People might say, I want to go live on a beautiful island. Why can you not? And I understand that there's factors and variables at play, but so often I think that people discuss the things they want to do, whether it's learning to code, whether it's starting a business, whether it's whatever, that the reality is you could do it. You just have to be willing to actually dedicate your time to actually fucking doing it. That's just the reality of it. So that's one. And then two, I'll go with recent things. It's not a criticism of anyone. I think don't be performative in your activism or your contribution. To the point that I just made about Paul Robeson. The reason why I read his book, Here I Stand, when I was like 13 years old, and it shifted my perspective. Here I Stand by Paul Robeson, right? And the whole title of his book was about, this is where my feet are. This is the line in the sand that I draw. These are the things that I believe in. These are the things that I'm willing to die for. Right now, we have more activism and social unrest than what we probably had in the last 50 years. And I'm sorry if this hurts anyone's feelings, but posting a black square is not enough. You need to call. You need to email. You need to write a letter. You need to donate. You need to spread information. You need to read a book. You need to do something beyond just posting a black square. And it's not about it being wrong. It's about just understanding that the level of effort that it takes to create change goes beyond just social media activism. Yeah. Those are the two things that I would say.
Hey, man.
It's not a matter of right and wrong. It's a matter of understanding the depth and the width of the impact that you're trying to make.
Yeah, man. And, just to put my little 2 cents on that, I think it's just very much needed. I've actually had some people obviously, ask me how I'm doing, what they can do. And, I didn't have like an exact answer, but I think what I always kind of told them was that first step is the fact that you wanted to reach out to me tells me that you want to do something. You know what I'm saying? So I can't tell you what to do, but I know that asking me how I'm doing is only the first step.
Right.
So I mean, I don't think you've offended anybody. I think everybody was kind of just, we're very just comfortable in what everybody's doing. Yeah. And I'm not gonna hate on anybody that posts a black square, but I do feel like everybody wants to take that next step, and we just gotta figure it out and do it. So, I appreciate you leaving us with those 2 words.
I appreciate you, man.
No, for real. I really, really appreciate you. So I'm gonna wrap it up. I want to thank you once again for joining me.
No problem.
I don't even know if we gave you enough time, man.
It's all good. Again, anyone who wants books on programming or whatever like that, just DM me and I'll send you a link.
Yeah. We'll get something together to post, and then definitely just he's a very open person. He might take a while to get back to you in the DMs, but he'll reply.
I will. I do always reply.
He always reply. He might leave you on red for a couple of days, but he'll reply. But no, once again, I do want to thank you, bro. I think, your willingness to be a part of this so early on. I'm just starting this out, but I definitely believe in it. It's very beneficial. I hope you guys were able to learn something today. But I'm going to let you go. Once again, he will be giving out a free book to a lucky viewer this episode.
Word.
Hope you guys are paying attention. I'm going to make up some questions from this. And that's all I got, man. I appreciate you. Let me wrap it up with the rest of the audience.
I appreciate it. You do your
All
thing,
right,
man. Thanks, bro.
Yeah.
Peace, y'all.
All right, man. I'm going to wrap it up. Once again, I want to thank you guys all for joining. Maybe some of the new first-time followers. I really like this episode a lot. I'm a little bit biased because I'm a big fan of Cortney. I'm always, in love with what he's doing. He's always inspiring me to just go out there and get it. And that's really one of the main goals of the show as well. I try to bring people up here that I hope will inspire you guys to go and get it. I don't know if it's episode 1, episode 2, episode 3, but if I'm able to touch just one person and they're able to go out there and make some moves, I'm happy. I've had people reach out to me and say, yo, that was dope. I've been thinking about this. What do you think about that? And I've actually had people that say, hey, I'm doing something. Can I be on the show in a couple weeks? So I hope that you guys are able to get the most out of it. And regarding the special episode I mentioned, I'm trying to set up an episode basically to address the current happenings with the recent killings, protests, riots, whatever you want to call it. What I want to do is set up an episode that we can actually have people that are knowledgeable in their own rights tell us really what are some good actionable thoughts. I'm looking to do it pretty soon, but I also don't want to force it, but I want to make sure I bring the right guests to you guys. So that's what I'm working on. I will let you guys know when I get that date set up. Let me know if you guys have anybody you would like to recommend. But that's really all I got, man. I hope you guys enjoyed it. I wish you guys all well. Hope you guys are all staying safe and being active, So I'll be back in about 3 weeks for episode 5. I'll let you guys know who that guest will be. And thank you guys once again for joining the Paul and Pals IG Live show. Peace.